what's great about this environment, right? We're here in this remote environment, by the way, enabled by technology, right? So, and that's what I really want to talk about today, and using the book as a way to discuss that technology is really don't think of it as something separate. Think of it as something integral, something part of, something that enables something. In fact, we're going to talk about, in consulting, we used to say the three-legged stool is people, process, and technology. I would actually question that, and I say it's just people and process. Technology automates or enables, if you will, the process. Either a process is manual or it's automated. It's either on or it's off. So it's people and processes that get things done, and technology can enable both. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to use the book and its chapter. There's a whole chapter in the book called Automate Everything You Can. And I really mean that. Just instead of saying, should we automate this, go into something saying to yourself, why is this not automated? And that's really the mindset shift to have if you don't have that already. So I asked Scott, thanks Scott for keeping this slide up there. Just wanted to give you some context. I like to do this so you understand where I'm coming from, if you will. Certainly now I'm a member of the IIA Global Headquarters staff. So I have that perspective, certainly. I joined about a year ago from, I've been in the internal audit profession since 2007, except for that few years in South Africa. At Tyco, the internal audit department was a rotational department. It is strategy one that I talk about in the book, that internal audit should be a rotation. And that was a great experience, and really fueled my passion for a more business relevant internal audit function. So in between external audit, which is where I started my career, at Coopers & Lybrand, the C of PwC, going to age myself there a little bit. So in between external audit and internal audit, almost 2 decades really in the technology space, mostly software technology, not the hardware side. And, spend time selling software, working with other technology providers, creating joint solutions, strategic relationships. I started back in my finance career by being a CFO of a consulting firm, and then eventually joined Tyco to join internal audit in 2007. So I've always had a pretty good technology acumen just by having a lot of passion for it and understanding its use and how it enables productivity and not only efficiency, but effectiveness as well. So we're going to talk about all those thoughts. We're going to drill into that chapter of the book, and we're going to use this fantastic report that Carrie and Scott just mentioned, and we're going to bring that in right into the chapter and really show how that survey information is really validating a lot of what we're saying in the book, and hope it will challenge how you're thinking about things as well. So let's get started. When I came back from, so we're going to talk, I'm going to give a little bit of overview of the book in general, and then we're going to go into the automation chapter a bit, bringing in the recent survey data into that chapter as well. I just wanted to give you some context. When I was in South Africa, we were visited a few times by the corporate audit team, and it was a fantastic audit, fantastic auditors, beautiful findings as we call them. They were just beautiful, and what we meant is they were good findings. I'm not saying they weren't valid findings, but they just weren't very helpful, frankly, to us trying to run a business down there in that region. Very difficult business we had there, very complex, dealing with things I've never dealt with before. There was no book I could read to prepare for that, well, except for my language lessons. I did learn a couple languages before I landed there. But, just dealing with things, it just wasn't relevant to what we were dealing with. So that really frustrated me a bit and got me really passionate about this topic. And when I came back, I went to the GAM conference, the annual flagship conference of the IAA, and just a great conference, the General Audit Management Conference. I went there, and this was presented. And they said that even though 2/3 of chief audit executives consider agility, now we're talking agility at the department level here. We're not talking about agile auditing. We're not talking about an audit methodology per se. We're talking about your ability as a department to be flexible, responsive to what matters most to your enterprise. 2/3 of you said, yes, that's very important, yet less than half at that time said that we were agile as functions. I do suspect that That 45% is higher now. We've been forced into agility this past year. If you were sitting there and not being agile, meaning not being flexible, not changing things this past year, then I don't know what happened, but we were forced into it. So I suspect that 45% is much higher. So that's important, right? And the reason why I bring this up here is, again, I'm going to try to bring technology and automation into everything we're talking about here, because it enables all this. It allows us to be agile as a department. This was paramount. This was so important for me as a chief audit executive, knowing my back office was fully automated and knowing that my team, my human resources, were not bogged down in administrative tasks and doing things that were duplicative to other things, me having to ask them for status, et cetera. No, I didn't. I could just self-serve. I could see everything going on myself because it was all in the application. It was all in the platform. So my human resources were released from that to use the human qualities to provide opinions, insight, intelligence, these kinds of things, and being responsive, being flexible, and spending time with people. That's what the book is really all about. It's those soft skills, not the technical side, that will make or break you as you move up an organization, and will make or break you as you try to be a more responsive audit function, including doing things you've never done before. So that's, automation, have that take care of all that administrative stuff so your humans can be wonderful humans and use those qualities. That's how we can be agile and responsive. And then in the we started in 2020 and the 2021 Pulse as well. We presented this ambition model. It's actually out of the Netherlands. You can see at the bottom there. It's a bit of a maturity model, right? And we started this in the 2020 Pulse survey. We did it again this year in the 2021 Pulse survey, released in March at the GAM conference. And this ambition model I really, really like. It's really interesting for me. We focus a lot on that first line. If you're looking at the slide from left to right, that first dotted line, we look at a lot at that, and we say 15% of the respondents were saying they were not at level 3 yet. By the way, level 3, if you were to look at the details of this model, level 3 is that level where you self-assess that you're generally conforming with the IIA standards. So 15% said we're not there quite yet. And there's good reasons for that. I've been a chief audit executive of a new audit function. I probably was at level 2 there. And, we're just getting started building our infrastructure, getting on the ground. We're an independent, professional, internal audit function. We have procedures, processes. We do a risk assessment, these kinds of things, right? We're not quite conforming yet, but we're getting up and running. That's an improvement from 2020. I think it was almost 20. I think it was 20% actually. So a pretty big jump, 20% to 15% saying that we don't conform quite yet. We're still getting started. But level 3 is interesting for me because although that conforms with the standards, if you were to read the details of that, it talks about being integrated, having to integrate, and it actually uses the word separate. We're doing something separate. It even says from a risk assessment perspective, we're doing a separate risk assessment. So if you're feeling at level 3, not quite at level 4 yet, that's because you're feeling a bit separate. And still, even in the Pulse we just released, 44% of us are still feeling a bit separate. And what do I mean? Are you doing separate things, duplicating work? So are you doing a separate risk assessment? Or are you inside the organization's more enterprise risk assessment, or whatever process your organization uses to decide what matters most, to decide what it's trying to accomplish, to decide what risks and uncertainties are involved in trying to accomplish those things? Are you in the middle of that and inside that, or are you not and you have to do something separate? And if you are, you're really, if you're not inside, you're outside. And you think you know everything, but I can tell you from being on the other side of the table, unless you're on my side of the table as a CFO of a business, for example, you really don't know what I know. You know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And I was looking at the model this morning again to look at how it was talking about automation, and it's really talking about technology-enabled processes, technology-enabled connection at level 4. And a good example I think you all will understand is when we talk about continuous risk assessment. And Harold and I did a presentation last year. I think it was a webinar on risk assessment. We talked about the difference between continuous and just more frequent. Certainly in the last year, annual has not been enough. We've been at the very least doing things more frequently. And our audit plan changes have been more frequent. And our sense of risk, we've been wanting a more frequent awareness of risk assessment, not just annual. But continuous is a different ballgame. And again, I love definitions. I always look at definitions. It really grounds me and helps me to think about something. Continuous, by definition, requires connection. You are not continuous unless you have a connection. Otherwise, you're more frequent, which is good, by the way. So more frequent is not very difficult, really, but continuous is much more difficult because it requires connection, and connection requires technology and automation. So again, automation really, really will enable your internal audit functions to move from left to right on this maturity model here. And then lastly, I just want to talk about the 3 lines model just quickly. I love the new 3 lines model. Personally, I use it in all of my presentations. I did not use the old 3 lines of defense model. Apologies to all of my IAA staff, friends and colleagues and associates. I didn't see how I could use it. It was very defensive, you know what I mean? This one is much less defensive, you know what I mean? We don't use the word defense anymore. This one is what I call relevant encouragement. Again, the name of the book is Ready and Relevant. I'm talking about a business relevant internal audit function like any other function in the business. And really, this is encouraging me as an internal audit leader to be more relevant, meaning working with management to help them do their job. So look at these arrows, for example, on this new 3 lines model. The arrows are, some of them are new, by the way. There were not arrows going back and forth between management and internal audit before, if I recall. And not only are there arrows there, but they're going both ways, which is nice. So it's just saying, you know, we're all on the same team and we should be working together. In the end, we all work for the same governing body, and they represent the owners of the business in the end. They could be taxpayers, they could be shareholders, whatever they are. We all work for the same people upward. And that's what those arrows, we have arrows going up now as we did before. But guess what? Those arrows are coming both ways as well. They're coming back down. So when we talk about things like integrated assurance, that's those top arrows for me and helping management do its job. And again, technology, we're going to have this model back in the presentation a little bit more. So I'll hold some thoughts there on what that green line is. That green line is Tim's line. That's not an official line on the new 3 lines model. That green line is something I put in there. And I'm going to tell you what that green line is all about in just a moment. So what I'm talking about is, you know, this is Sir Richard Branson, of course. We all know him. And I actually saw this quote on LinkedIn. And actually, he was talking about when you get new job opportunities. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about new audit engagement opportunities. When someone calls you from the business, from the governing body, from the C-suite, whoever it is, and that someone presents an opportunity for internal audit to work on something that matters, really, really matters to the organization, matters to the enterprise, matters to the business accomplishing its objectives at an important level. I'm not talking just a little business unit. I mean, like, it really matters. You know, you want to be able to say yes to those. You want to be ready to say yes to those. And I promise you, one way to feel confident, I've always felt confident that if I got a great opportunity, I would say yes. And I would not lose that opportunity to say yes, and lose that opportunity for internal audit to be very relevant, and lose that opportunity for my audit team to work on a very, very exciting, relevant project that they learn from, right? Especially if it's something new. And I was always ready to say yes. And one of the reasons is I knew my back office was taken care of. Technology, I didn't have to worry about my back office. It was taken care of. I knew that was not an issue. I had a diverse team of various competencies and skill sets and perspectives so we can have good debate and solve problems. I had co-source partners ready to go that had my back and always made sure that I was successful and did everything that they could. You know, I was ready to say yes because I had all these things. And that's why I have a whole chapter on automate everything you can so your humans can use our human qualities to say yes to these kinds of opportunities and solve problems. So in the book, I talk about these key strategies. Even though there's 9 bullets there, I did count, and I wanted to remind, in case you're counting, I know you're accountants and auditors, so you're counting, and yes, there's only 9 bullets, and I say 10, because the bottom bullet has 2 of them, actually, so I got you there, 9 plus 1. So these are the 10 things that I talk about in the book, and you can see toward the bottom there, we have a whole chapter on automate everything you can. Have that mindset, automate everything you can. So we're going to talk about now why do it? I think you know why. It's almost like, why not? Why can't you? What's stopping you, right? But we'll spend a little time talking about why. I think it's going to be a lot of things you already know, so it might validate some things. We're going to bring in the survey data as well there. And we're going to talk about, what to automate exactly. We got the back office. We got what I call the front office, because I didn't know what else to call it. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. And we're also going to talk about how to buy automation and really how not to buy it. And I'm going to come at you from the CFO side of the table there, someone who has run capital budget processes. And I'm going to tell you, encourage you, suggest to you to stay out of that process and instead go elsewhere that you can control. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. All right, so let's get into the chapter of the book now, Ready and Relevant, this automation, automate everything you can. And let's just start with just talking just a little bit on why automate. And I thought Richard Chambers had a really great quote in his new book. The Internal Audit Foundation published a new book, Agents of Change. Fantastic book. And what a great quote in there that I grabbed out of there with the foundation's approval. Thank you, Emily, Carrie, and others for allowing me to use that quote here. But look at that bottom of it. It's a capacity multiplier. I really love that line, the second half of this quote. I really love it. Capacity multiplier when done right? When done right. Certainly we know automation, it's one of those things that you certainly know when you do it wrong, right? It creates a lot of noise and a lot of problems in your processes, and your people are bogged down in the problems and they're not able to do the work that they want to do or need to do, right? But man, when it's in there and it's in there right and done right, planning, make sure you measure 3 times, cut once. You only got one, it's not that you have one shot, but really you want to do this one time as far as the implementation of automation. But when it's done right, what a capacity multiplier of your human resources. It was amazing what we get done on my smaller audit teams. When I left Tyco and was a chief audit executive of smaller audit teams, I'm talking, maybe 9 FTEs, something like that. But I always had 7 plus 2 or 6 plus 3. What do I mean? 9 FTEs of budget, 6 or 7 internal team members, and then 2 or 3 FTEs worth of money to have co-source partners come in and help us out. And we got a lot done with that kind of budget. We got a lot of strategic things done. We even ended up on the Chairman's Award at one company because we helped open a new sales channel and made sure that at the back office and the IT security was ready to handle that. Really great opportunities, but we're able to do those things because we were fairly automated and using that automation in the right way. And it really multiplied the ability of our smaller team to really do a lot of work, frankly. Okay, we talk about why automate. I talked about this, so I'll just touch on it again. Here it is. In the consulting space, we talk a lot about people, process, and technology, and I still like to use that. It's really a good way to talk about your budget. Our budget, as one audit committee chairman said to me once, he said, Tim, your job is to take the budget I give you and use it wisely. You get the most out of it. Give us the most value you can out of that budget. And this is what a budget really is. A budget is the amount of money you have to buy the optimal mix, the optimal combination of people, process, and technology. But technology really rolls into both of them. I really think it's just people and process. And what I mean is process is either manual or automated, and frankly, FTEs, full-time equivalents, let's say people, but let's rename it full-time equivalents. They're also either human or automated as well. So really for me, technology, which is kind of at the bottom of this picture anyway, it really just becomes part of the other two. Again, as I said, I had 9 FTEs worth of budget. I had 6 or 7 internal staff, meaning humans, and I had some e-workers as well using RPA and tools like this. I called them e-auditors, just love them. They come to work every day. They do great work papers the same every time, very standardized, this kind of thing, right? These are some of the things about automation, right? So automate your processes, try to automate things so your human resources are released to really use their soft skills, not their technical skills, their soft skills, because that's what differentiates us. It's, the reason why you want to spend a lot of time on your soft skills is it's not yet easy nor affordable to automate those. AI's coming, and AI's doing a lot of great stuff, but it's not quite there like RPA is. I think RPA is a great technology. Look for something sequential, something administrative, and try to get e-auditors out there doing some work for you. for your humans. So think of technology as an integral part of these other two, not separate, that has to be integrated, not separate, that has to be thought of separately, really. Just have technology part of the conversation of the other two and make those other two way more efficient, way more effective by enabling them. So it's going to be faster, of course. Technology should make something faster. It really should. Of course it should. So it's faster to perform, especially at higher volumes. We've been talking about data analytics forever, I think as long as we've been alive, right? And, automation allows us to test populations. So in the right situation, it's a fantastic audit. We don't have a sample to extrapolate anymore. We're testing the whole population. I could tell you, having been on the other side of the table, the other side of the audit table, it's really, really powerful when you can say, hey, Tim, we tested this entire population and here's what we found. That's a lot of confidence. I don't need to have 95% confidence in the sample size and all that. You could just tell me the facts the way it is, right? Very, very powerful. So automation, really data-driven findings and data-driven recommendations, I promise you, are very, very relevant discussions to someone on the other side of that audit table. And it's very reliable. The thing I like to say about automation is it's on or off. The bytes are on or off. The light is on or off. It's 1 or 0. It really is. I don't know if that, maybe Scott can correct me, but I don't think that's changed. I think the bytes are still 1 or 0. That's all it is. It just looks a lot better now, right? So it either works or it doesn't. You obviously got to have good IT GCs around them, good IT general controls. In my audit practicing, I focused a lot on IT general controls. I wanted to make sure those are solid. I didn't have a lot of tolerance for exceptions there. They really should be in place. They should be on or off, 1 or 0, and be working. If I can have those good IT general controls wrapped around my applications, whatever they are, in all lines of the business, all 3 lines, then I can really, really rely on that automation. It's reliable, it's reusable, it works 24/7, it works while I'm sleeping. It's self-service. I'd rather serve myself. The audit leader I am, I'd rather have something where I can check myself the status of something. Or, I don't want to have to bother my team. Hey, what's the status of this or that? How much time are we taking on this or that? I shouldn't have to do that. I don't want them. It's not that I don't want to do that. I want to get those status updates. I don't want them to have to do that for me. I want them to be spending their time with management and with people and helping them do their jobs and that sort of thing. I don't want them bogged down having to tell the chief audit executive the status of things. So self-service, I really take your applications. Once you have the foundation implemented, try to always have dashboards and things like that so people can serve themselves. And when they ask for a status, by the way, don't tell them, show them how to get it themselves. Train them by showing them how to do it. Again, the tagline here to always remember, what is internal audit's job? There's a lot of ways to explain that. The IA has a definition of that, a very good definition of that. Maybe just a simple definition of that is internal audit helps others do their job. That's really our job. Our job is to not do it for them. Our job is to help them do their job. And we're going to talk about that green line, which is automation as well. So, automate, there's so many reasons why automate. It's almost like, why not automate? And one reason to automate is, the more we can get the second line and the first line under control, repeatable, reliable, et cetera, the less I, as an internal audit function, have to do on that particular process or business unit, right? And I can release those hours to work on something else. It's not, please don't worry, it's not a situation where internal audit's budget is going to decrease because I'm automating myself and I'm helping others automate. People are going to notice how relevant that work is and how important that work is and the value that we're enabling through automating others, to helping others to automate and do their jobs, right? And that will release time for us that we can then spend elsewhere. And that's really the whole idea, and really if you're with someone in management who's like, well, why should I have you, internal audit, help me automate and help my process be better, et cetera. There's a lot of good reasons for that. But one of the reasons is I can audit you less. And I promise you, they're going to like that on the other side of the table. As much as they love you, you are wonderful people. I mean, look at the cover of Ready and Relevant. We are superstars. We are superheroes. But they really rather you not be there if you don't have to be there, right? So if you have to say, hey, let me work with you to help you get your process more under control, more reliable, more dependable, more predictable. And by the way, we should get to a point where I can audit you less. And that's what this document's all about. Look at the date of that document, 2005, still very relevant. Absolutely good visual. This is coming from the joint report. So we asked, what are common challenges in internal audit functions in 2020? We asked you in this joint study with the foundation and audit board, and these are some of the things that you presented to us, right? That you said these are the top challenges. And look at these. Automation should help with all of these. Especially these bottom three. These are easiest to understand, right? So collaboration. You can. Emailing back and forth and maybe even Zoom messages are even a little bit better, but that's not what that's not really collaboration. Collaboration is I'm in the room together, I'm talking. We can collaborate into an application as well, right? So have an application that connects people. Again, connection, it's a key word here. So we want to connect people to this application, whatever it might be. It's really what gets ERM, for example, to the next level. It's really what's stopping ERM programs from being more collaborative is they don't have the automation in place to allow that connection to an application. I would rather a risk owner connect to the application directly and tell me what he or she is doing to manage this risk and providing updates to the program by providing updates to the application. I don't want to have to bother. Collaboration is not me sending an email to a risk owner. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? Are you doing what you told me you're going to be doing? Can you send me an update? Collaboration is really allowing people to communicate in a central connection so that we can all see what's going on. It's a shared version of the truth. It's one version. Version control is so important, and automation can really take that risk off the table. There's one version. When I'm collaborating in an application, I'm not talking spreadsheets, I'm talking a real application. There's one version of the truth, and you don't have a version control issue. So, in that bottom one as well, if you're spending time asking for updates, if you're waiting for people to record their time, if the more you're doing, just try to think to yourself, why am I not doing this in automation? Why am I not doing this in automation? If I'm bogged down in administrative tasks, especially us smaller internal audit teams, the smaller, the more need for automation because we have such limited human resource, right? If we're bogged down in these manual and administrative tasks, then we really don't have enough time available to be meeting with people like we should, building relationships, helping people solve problems. That's what the governing body wants us to do. Help the business solve problems, help the business be more predictable, more forecastable, less risk profile, et cetera, et cetera. We can't do that if we're bogged down in administrative tasks. So this is from the survey as well. Here's what you said. We asked you to agree not is manual technology limiting your effectiveness? And almost half of you said yes. Manual and what I'll call manual plus. So manual is spreadsheets, shared drives, these kinds of things. And it's really 45% said strongly agree that this is limiting my ability to be effective. Now, interesting for me, when I looked at this again this morning to prepare for this webinar, I noticed it didn't say efficient. If we said that, I think the 45% would be a lot more. So maybe you can be effective in the end, right? But probably not very efficient, I would challenge. So we didn't say efficiency and effectiveness, we said effectiveness. But a number of people are okay, and it could be whatever situation it is, it's just fine that, neither agree or disagree or strongly disagree. We think we're fine. But a great opportunity for almost half of you saying, I agree, my manual situation, spreadsheets, shared drives, these kind of things, they're helpful, but it's really limiting me to going to the next level. Going from level 2 to level 3, and maybe even more important, meaning more valuable, level 3 to level 4. So we talked about the back office. I'm going to move on because of time. I wanted to show this. So this is from the survey as well, the joint project. And what I found most interesting about this, and even though it's not perfectly in order, you can see the colors go back and forth a little bit. Directionally, what it told me is those that are in the orange, those that have audit management software or GRC, that is, those that have moved from manual, which is spreadsheets and shared drives, those that have moved from that to applications, that's the way to think about it. Applications, that's the orange. They're in the applications. But even those people, we're automating the bottom rows here. That's kind of the back office. But we're still got a lot of opportunity up the value chain here. Look at the things on the top here, which are still very heavily manual. So your risk assessment and your resource planning, look at that. Collaboration across individuals, 72% are still manual there, because that's more difficult, right, to automate. But I promise you, it's the real big bang to get to the next level of any risk management program like ERM or others, and really allow technology to enable connection of people, enable collaboration. So good news is a lot of us are in the orange. There's a lot of opportunity in the blue. That's good news. That's opportunity. That's okay. That's good news. But as you automate on applications, it certainly is a good idea for phase one, automate that back office. But then look forward, look to how you can use automation to enable you to be more effective with the first and second lines of management. And when I'm talking about the front office, what I'm talking about is, what is internal audit's job? To make the business better, right? We have a fancier way of saying that with our definition, but that's it. Our job is to make the business better, to give the business a higher probability of meeting its objectives, right? And really, it's better for the business, for the enterprise, for the organization. It's better for the business that the management lines do their job. Of course, you don't want to rely on internal audit catching things. If internal audit's catching a lot of things, that means the business is not good, right? It's not operating good. We don't want internal audit catching things. Really, it's all great if internal audit's not catching things, because internal audit, one of the jobs we can do that's very relevant value is help those second lines and first lines, especially those second lines, help them do their job. Those that own the risk, I promise you, they want to be accountable to the risk. If I own it, I want to be accountable to it. I want to be empowered to manage it. And I want to be the one telling my bosses that I'm good to go, that I'm doing my job, that I'm doing what I told you I was going to do. Internal audit comes in and provides additional assurance where needed, but help these other lines automate. That's a much better controlled process, much more reliable, repeatable, works 24/7, all the reasons we said before. A great opportunity for internal audit is to help those lines automate. So the answer to the other question, look at end-to-end processes. So I'm from manufacturing. Procure to pay, for example, I did a project where I helped accounts payable automate. They were very, very manual. It was a manual mess. There was no reason for it. And we we worked with IT, worked with them, and we helped them figure out a solution that was affordable to them. We even helped them fund that so they would make it happen. It was better for the business, for accounts payable, to be more automated, and we helped them make that happen. They owned it. It was theirs. They did it. There's no issue there at all. We just helped them make it happen. Those are great opportunities to be very, very, very relevant and make that control environment much better. And just quickly on SOX, automate this thing as much as you can. Never forget that SOX is a law, and this is a legal compliance matter. I have not heard anyone tell me, don't correct me if I'm wrong, because there's 1,000 of you, so don't go in the chat box too much. But SOX tends to not be a competitive advantage. It certainly is a massive problem if something happens here, right? Material weaknesses, those are not good. Those are bad. Those can be a lot of problems. You don't want that. But SOX tends not to be a competitive advantage. Automate this thing. Automate this thing as much as you can. Make it reliable. You don't want to spend, we're still spending a lot of our time on this. The Pulse survey that just came out, this was the #1 user of internal audit time with SOX. Automate this thing as much as you can. Automated controls, even GRCs, allow people to connect to that GRC and tell internal audit what we're doing. Here's the documentation, self-serve. That's what we had in my last CAE practicing engagement. We had SAP GRC there. We actually, with our budget, we helped the SOX compliance team get more of the controls in there, because it was best for the organization. It was best for the control owners to use that GRC platform to tell us what they're doing, to put their documentation there, so that we don't have to go ask them. We don't have to bother them. We internal audit can just self-serve. We went right into the GRC application. We got what we needed. We certainly went to them if we needed more, but for the most part, 80% of the time, everything we needed was right in there. Really, really make this as efficient as possible, as automated as possible, It's better for the business. It's better for the control environment. So just quickly, again, going back to the book and all the chapters and the key strategies that it talks about, you can see automate everything you can at the bottom there is one of the chapters we talked about. And a lot of times I showed the linkage of one particular strategy, in this case being automation, to all the other strategies. And when I did that, it was this particular strategy, automate everything you can, that had the highest linkage to everything else. Of course it does. That's why we shouldn't look at automation as a separate thing that we have to integrate in. It just should become an integral part of everything. So as a rotation, so if I have audit team members that are working within automation applications and they're helping other people automate, I promise you that's a competency and experience that is very desirable in the business. So if you're a rotating internal audit function, for example, automation is a fantastic competency that people are going to want. So you being comfortable in using automation and applications and knowing how to be an application user and what that means and the value of all that, that's a fantastic competency that'll really help you in your career and moving up and moving into different opportunities and that sort of thing as well. So integrated assurance, another one I just wanted to mention, really almost impossible without automation. I would say, to do it manually, it's almost not worth it. It'd be so difficult, so administrative. Without automation, integration assurance is one of those things, just like data analytics. We've been talking about data analytics and integrated assurance for as long as I've been alive, I think. Well, maybe not that long, but certainly as long as I've been in an internal audit, let's say that. And integrated assurance is another one. Very hard to do without automation enabling that collaboration, enabling that reporting. So automation is really integral to all the strategies we talk about in the book, Ready and Relevant. And here we asked you as well, and this is coming from the survey, the joint report with Audit Board and the foundation, and we asked you about technology. And look, it's the smaller functions that are struggling, right? We talked about that. So 48% of the very small, I'll call those very small audit functions in a manual environment, not planning to implement audit management or GRC for whatever reason. There's a lot of good reasons there. Just make sure we're not looking in the mirror. Make sure we're not the reason, right? Make sure we understand that automation is not something separate. It's an integral part of what we do. And automate, when I have 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 people on my audit team, automation is really what can free up those limited resources. And in fact, if I had a team of 5, and I had small teams, I was in that next group of 6 to 25. But if I had a team of 5, I would say from a budget perspective, if I'm a rotating department and I rotate somebody off, I'm not going to replace that person. I'm going to go to 4, and I'm going to replace that person with automation. That's what I did at one team. When somebody offboarded, we from an annual license perspective, we added capability from an automation perspective. So, really release those limited resources through automation. And how to buy automation, I promise you, it's very difficult for us, internal audit. And this will be really one of the last topics I talk about. It's the last, I'm sorry, I'm looking at what's next. It's really difficult for internal audit to get capital budget. Capital budget is what you need if you buy something that has to go on the balance sheet, right? You know that. And what is that from a technology perspective? That's on-premise. That's things like perpetual licenses. Those are assets because they're beyond 12 months, right, of value. So those are assets that require capital money. That is not your budget. That is somebody else's budget. It tends to be run by Treasury, the CFO's office. It's a separate process, very difficult. And it's very difficult for internal audit to get that money. It's very difficult for us to justify that money, right? And we try to do it with soft benefits. I promise you, as a CFO, the other side of the table, especially right now, I'm not interested in soft benefits. I'm interested, if you want capital money, I need to see the benefit on the forecast. And we can't do that. We can't do that. So move to the right here. Move to the right. So really look at your operating budget. And the way to buy technology with your operating budget is annual license, 12-month license. Those are OpEx, not CapEx, right? It's not an asset. It's an expense. I have an operating budget that's an expense. I'm an expense center. I can control that. Buy your technology with operating budget money. You do that by going in the cloud. You do that by buying annual license type models. They've come a long way. The cloud, these people have scale. You obviously would do due diligence around security, but it's very professional. And this is a very affordable way to buy technology and just make it an integral part of your operating budget. It's an FTE. have that mindset. That's how I've been successful in buying automation.